Joined now by Tuesday regular from the Province and Post Media, Mr. Patrick Johnston. Boy, it's been a busy week for the Vancouver Canucks. How are you?
It's never not busy, I feel like. People always ask me, what are you going to write about now that the season's over? Like, you got to feed the beast. The beast carries on until...
Second week of May, no problems.
Yeah. There were a few seconds there when I thought, they've been fined for illegal workouts. Now the other shoe is going to drop, and they're going to win Connor Bedard, and it's going to be like this itty-bitty footnote in Canucks history where you can say they were such a gong show that even hours before winning the lottery, they were fined by the league for illegal workouts. But then the pride of North Vancouver, the Prodigy, dropped in their lap. Yeah. Sadly, you didn't get to write that story, Peach.
Well, I mean, I was off anyway, so it wouldn't have been my story anyway. It was a cruise joint anyway, but... So
you didn't care. Did you watch the draft lottery? Are you familiar that they're picking 11th, Patrick?
I am familiar that they're picking 11th. Hey, like I said, I tweeted, like, everyone heard Kevin Weeks screw up. And, like, everyone tweeted, and I was like, wait, they didn't... What? I had sort of heard it, and I was like, but then everyone tweeted, and I was like, okay... Yes,
only the NHL, right? Only the NHL.
I don't understand. To be honest, I don't understand why they don't just show the Gary with the balls. Like, isn't that interesting? I think that's at least as interesting as what they do.
I would agree.
And then they released it anyway.
And then, you're transparent from the jump, too, right?
Gary in his newspapers.
Right.
I love that.
Watch, because if the NHL did that, guys, the ping pong ball would get stuck in the channel on the way down, and they'd say, we're going to go to break, we're going to get a roto-rooter to get the ping pong. Like, when that would happen.
When the glass breaks and the guys have to come out and replace the glass in the building.
They have a backup ping pong ball sorter. We need a backup.
Well, this is the thing. They do 1,001 draws because there's a backup draw in case they have to reset it or something. I didn't quite understand.
Oh my God! Too much.
All recalls Pat Williams, the former GM of the Orlando Magic. You remember they won Shaquille O'Neal and Chris Webber back to back. They only had the one ping pong ball in the second lottery, which was done, the old school lottery way, right, where the pinball gets sucked up
at the end of the news.
Yeah, exactly, at the end of the news. And he said, "We spent a lot of time with that ping pong ball, nurturing it, coaching it. We told him, hang around near the top, and when you see the light, make a run for it."
Alas, no such obedience, Canuck ping pong balls.
No. So let's ask you this then, buddy. It's 11th overall. It's not a player that's going to help next year. Of course, stated goal each and every year. They fail at it most years, but make the playoffs. Right. And on Friday, our buddy Rick Tocchet was telling us that, he thought Tocchet was going to have a pretty big say in what happens personnel-wise this summer, particularly since it may be difficult to move money, as they've learned here for the last year and a half. What do you think the chances are that they trade this pick?
Oh, well, I mean, I asked Patrick Alvin, could you trade back? I certainly think there would be interested in that because you sit at 11, and 11's the kind of spot where you can probably find a dance partner who is willing to move something up. But that's not but when you do that, you're still not doing that to add a player, right? You're doing that to like pick up a second round or third round pick or something. So yeah, I'm sure, multiple people immediately, cynically or otherwise, texted me as soon as they were like, they're going to trade. Watch them do it. And I'm like, please, no.
I mean, it's at least possible, right?
Yeah,
you have to admit it's possible. Yeah.
No, he didn't say, we are using this pick. We're not doing anything. Gretzky was traded, he said, right? Like, anything could happen.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, but if it's for a third-line center or a defenseman that is under the age of 25,
right?
Should Canuck fans care?
Well,
I think that's what they would use it for.
Here's my counter to that. In 2021, the Blue Jackets drafted Cole Sillinger, and he was immediately in the lineup. Now, should he immediately have been in the lineup? I don't know. But I'm just saying, conceivably, you can find guys that are ready to go. I mean, the 11th overall pick last year, I don't have it in front of me, but he has not played. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
But, it is still a very good spot to be at. You're not getting a high-end, but you're certainly not getting Connor Bedard. You're not even getting the second-tier guys, right? Like, this is conceivably a third-line center down the road. So,
Which,
yeah,
can you not hear him saying that? We had a chance to draft someone who we thought could turn into a third-line center, but
yeah.
we decided to take the bird in the hand.
Yeah, and I mean that is not a new rationale, and it's certainly, people keep saying, well, what about Gustav Forsling? I mean, Gustav Forsling was traded because they thought for some reason Adam Clendening would beat Forsling, but like now, in the moment, and he wasn't. But that kind of thinking is always around, and yeah, absolutely. That's why I think everyone says it's entirely possible, because yeah, it is entirely possible. They shouldn't. They need prospects, but we've seen how this organization goes, even no matter who's in charge. So,
well, the other thing I wonder here, because he once again talked about best player available, which is the old scouting axiom, which to me is out of date. And then talked about how the roster could be so different by the time that this player is ready. So that's why you always take best player available. This organization is at a dearth of centers. Mm-hmm. It's at a dearth of defensemen, and particularly right shot centers and particularly right shot defensemen.
Yeah.
Patrick, hold me back if they take a left shooting winger, 11th overall. Okay?
Yeah.
But do you think
Andrew Crystal, they were bringing him home. They wanted him to play at home.
Great young player, for a lower mainland kid playing up in Kelowna and all that, absolutely. But do you think they absolutely have to use this pick to solve either right shot center or defense, be it now with a trade or in the future by drafting that profile of player?
Well, I think that comes back to my question for Alvin, because in the end, yeah, you draft best player available, but you know what? You're also able to make a few things work, serve a few different purposes. You don't have to pick at 11 for whatever you want. I mean, they need everything except maybe a goalie, I guess. If they pick a winger, I will be very surprised, because the winger is definitely not what they need.
They understand the exercise, I think.
I think they understand the exercise. I will be very surprised if they pick a winger. But if they're wrong, Matthew, I will join you in running down the streets and whatever it is we're doing.
We'll think of an activity.
Well, truthfully, guys, it's not a bad draft for obviously everybody wants them to be higher. That's for sure. But this is the lot they're given here at number 11. Considering that, I think it's reasonable to suspect of the top three defensemen, one of them is, I think, available at 11. If not two, and there's a remote possibility, all three.
Yeah.
And I think there's some of those depth centers that are available too. I think there are obvious go-tos at number 11 for their needs.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad spot.
No.
But, you do look back and you do say, okay, did they get it wrong with Vasily Podkolzin and things like that? Because that's the range we're talking about. Or it'll just take longer or what have you. But, I mean, like I pointed out, coming into it was the 2020 draft, so coming into this season. So the draft that was essentially, was 3 drafts ago now, but 2 before this year. 18 of the top 20 players that had played in the NHL by that point. This is a spot where your guy is going to be probably in the lineup in 2 seasons. It takes 2 seasons for top 20 picks to make it. And by the way, the 2 guys of those top 20 who haven't played are Russian. So, they probably would be, but for that element. So, this is a pick that's going to get you a player that is going to be in your lineup in 2024. Right?
Well,
19 years
25.
25 for sure. For 2024.
One would think. Yep.
Yeah.
If we're done with draft like Price, I'd like to move on to the other news item of yesterday. I mean, it's really the
knuckle wrapping.
What's that?
The knuckles being wrapped. Yes.
Well, I mean, it's the antithesis of Marshawn Lynch, right? I'm just here so I won't get fined. You were there, so now you're getting fined.
Yeah.
Vancouver Canucks. Alvin gave a bit of a mealy-mouthed explanation, said he was a little surprised, talked about how some guys were rehabbing injuries, some guys were getting ready for the Worlds, and some guys were young guys who requested extra work because they couldn't go to Utica or to Abbotsford. You tell me what's to believe here, and were the Canucks just trying to get away with a workout outside the CBA and are happy to pay the $50K?
I don't think they were doing anything terribly nefarious, but the rules are the rules, and the rules are there for a reason, and it's to prevent any suspicion of them not doing anything that's up to snuff. And I mean, I think he gave a list of things, right? The one thing that is valid is that guys who are rehabbing are allowed to be under the supervision of the team if they choose to be. So that's permissible. So they had a couple, like OEL was one of these guys, I imagine, maybe Dermott. Like I'm just throwing names out the top of the head. Guys that were injured. We knew Podkolzin was dealing. Podkolzin was trying to get in shape to come back and play in the playoffs for Abbotsford. So those guys would have had a legitimate case be working with team personnel. Mm-hmm. The rules are very clear that you can have your facility open. This is all coming out of the memorandum of understanding that was set up before the 2020-21 season, deep in the pandemic. And you can have your facilities open for players to skate, but that has to be their own initiative. You can basically set a schedule. Here's when our strength and conditioning guys are at the rink. So if you want to come have a workout with them, that's when because you're doing a workout in the off season, blah, 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 blah. But you cannot even encourage players to come do it. And I think quite clearly I don't think quite well clear. My guess is that, they had these guys skating. You have world championship guys, which Alvin said. So, Ethan Bear, Tyler Myers, maybe Connor Garland, who said, hey, can we do some skating? Oh, those guys are skating? Oh, yeah, great. I'll go skate with them. And then apparently young guys, and, Rick Dollywall naming Joshua and Stadika, presumably those are the younger guys, wanted to skate. And, the seniors are skating. I love skating with seniors. But the rules literally say you can't do that in the offseason. There's a whole bunch of reasons why. I mean, one person just suggested to me essentially this is the way it's phrased now. It's essentially, or contractors, because apparently, what the Leafs used to do was that all their skill people were on sort of retainer, but they weren't full-time staff. So if you wanted their skating coach, they had their skating coach that they would send to you, and that was the workaround. And essentially, they've shut that door. That the players now, all the off-season stuff, the players have to pay themselves. And I think for a certain level, like you can understand why in a league where there are teams that are trying to win but don't have as much money as the Toronto Maple Leafs, why that might be something that you might want to say, I'm not so sure about that. Now, of course, we should look at with great suspicion, anything that involves the NHL and these kinds of things, because a lot of times it is, again, like I've said, the worst high school you've ever been to, and it's simply people sneering and saying, that's not fair. But they're here. So there really were ways for the players to get all these things, to do all these things. The rules are quite clear. You can still do all these things, but you can't do it this way. And the Canucks got essentially caught doing it a way that is not allowed under the rules, even if they weren't really trying to create an extra conditioning camp or extra training camp. Like, a lot of these rules really are about August, early September, how long your training camp's supposed to be, how long you are able to require the players to be in the city before the season. Those rules are very clear. The interesting thing, by the way, in the ECBA is off-season is not actually defined, but that's
really exactly. It's not the off-season.
It's very weird. It's very weird. Yeah. And I asked a few people, and no one seems to quite have an answer. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't make sense because they've defined NHL. The NHL season is the regular season and the playoffs. But there's teams that aren't in the playoffs, so the implications are all there, and if you're a smart person, you can figure it out. But it is weird that it's not, because everything else is defined quite clearly. So, anyway.
Patrick, with the exception of the bubble year, the off season has most clearly been May through September in this town.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
For the better part of a decade. So do you think this is in any way connected with Tocchet and the persistent messaging about having a good summer and having a good summer? Do you think there was any kind of coach pressure here linked to the comments that Rick Tocchet made ad nauseum towards the end of the season?
I did find myself wondering, because there was also this other emphasis that the next time is not just going to be 50K. I mean, this is all language. Attachment L, if people want to see the memorandum of understanding.
Can't wait. I'll flip right
really
to it.
Really exciting stuff. But
open your notebooks. Attachment L.
Yeah, it's very clear. Children, listen. Monitoring.
Put it this way. If you're at attachment L, that means you got like 13 attachments before it. Sounds like a pretty thick and pithy document, if you ask me.
Basically the NHL, I think, was very clear. Like, whatever it is you guys think you can do, You can't do this anymore. I mean, this was something that, like I said, the rules were a bit different under the old CBA. They were still pretty clear that, like, off season was off season, and teams were very limited in terms of what they could actually do. They can run their summer prospect camp. That's something that's in there. They're allowed to do that. But when it comes to veteran players, there's a lot of rules around that. And, I mean, that is the thing. And I did find myself wondering, because it just came up so much. And you're going, Rick, you can't do that. Like, I know you want to, but you can't.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure the cities don't love their names being attached to this as well, in terms of taking part in it, because I'm sure people are like, why would they take part in it? Well, I'm sure they didn't think that it was untoward.
They're the development staff. It's exactly their role. Like, it is the kind of role they should be doing.
But I'll say this.
But they should also know the rule. Like, the rules should be pretty well known across.
And that was, as I asked someone yesterday, and they said, what, I sort of said, because I'd written this story about, there's no PA rep. There's no player standing around going, guys, actually, these are the rules. Like, you do need, like, they don't have a shop steward, as such as it is. But the team is supposed to know the rules. Like,
do we give them any credit for being somewhat transparent about it yesterday, at the very least?
I think so. Like I said, and that's why I think they kind of were like, "Oh, wait, you're right. Oops."
Yeah,
but
except they said they were surprised. So if it's black and white for those players who aren't rehabbing injuries, then we shouldn't be surprised, Patrick.
At the end of the day, no, that's exactly it. And they're like, "So, okay, you got us." There was a bit of naivete, but also like, okay, I guess we won't do that again.
Well, it sounded to me a little bit, too, like a relatively new general manager, having to tell the owner, just cost you $50K.
Well,
boss.
as I said, that's a line item. Which
I can't imagine a very comfortable conversation with.
That's fine, Patrick, but no new seats now because of that. That's a section of seats.
I mean, that's a salary, guys. Like, I mean, this is something I pointed out to a few people, because a few people are, what a big deal. I'm like, I mean, probably, but this is a company that is very careful with how it spends money, and there are examples of decisions essentially being put forward like that. That if you're going to spend that, then you're not going to spend this. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope that's not playing it out, and I'm being over the top and ridiculous, and that this doesn't mean that some low level salesperson is on the way out. Or
one would hope not, but of course. Who knows? And as Sam from the broadcast pointed out yesterday, they've had a posting for a chief legal counsel up there for the better part of the month. So apparently lawyers, not a lot of interest to be the top lawyer at Canucks Sports Entertainment these days.
Well, they haven't had a full-time chief legal officer since our friend Chris Gear was let go. And I mean, it's a job it's a tricky job. I mean, it's more than just CBA. I think the CBA's in there to leave a little bit. Hey, look how fun it might be. It's a job that involves a lot of sports law. Like, this is someone that is. It
is mostly a legal job with a little bit of crossover into CBA and the NHL.
But nonetheless, it does stand out that
yes.
It's a you got no sponsorship, you got no licensing, ticketing, all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
It's a sports industry job, but.
Right, more so than a CBA job, but these people tend to know rules, right, and tend to have read thick documents through and are able to
this sounds fit for you. 1040 rule book was your writing. You should apply.
Yeah, not so much. Patrick, on that fine note, we'll let you go. Thank you for the time, sir. We'll catch up Tuesday.
Take care, guys.